Cents can go back in my pocket now.
Oh, it's been there for a while and nobody's taken it. Isn't that funny?
Audit
Yeah,
shop.
I know. Or it tells you how little 37 cents is. Major point, huh?
I think that's probably a bit true too.
I lost my iPad. So I guess it's in my office.
Well, Joe's wife likes your book. Oh, good. Joe hasn't read it yet.
I was at the Dogfield Beers.
Ready, Danny? Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. If you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And Danny, will you please call roll?
Deputy Mayor Wales.
Here.
Councilmember Baggett. Here. Councilmember DeCoursey. Here. Councilmember Holman.
Here.
Councilmember Pelosa. Councilmember Pelosa.
That was Pelosa.
Councilmember Trout Manuel. Councilmember Wagner.
I would assume he'll be here soon. Okay. All right, let's move on. We have no announcements, proclamations, or presentations this evening. No appointments. Do we have any agenda modifications, Danny?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we have no public hearings, so we will move directly to audience participation. This is a place on the agenda where the public is invited to speak to the City Council on any issue. Those wishing to speak are reminded to sign in on the form provided, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Please come forward, give your name and address for the record.
My name is Liz Miller. My address is 5121 Nathan Loop Southeast, Auburn, Washington, 98092. Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for this evening. Thank you for your time. I come before you tonight to implore you to contribute to the Allen Moore Behavioral Hospital. I chose to come tonight because September is Suicide Prevention Month, as well as Addiction Recovery Month. These are two topics that both are very important and would be greatly impacted by your choice in giving to this hospital. Mental illness does not discriminate. 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health disorder in a year, with 50% of adults experiencing a mental illness in their lifetime. I assure you, no one wakes up and thinks it'd be a great day to become mentally ill. 50% of 911 calls are mental health related. In 2017, APD expects to involuntarily commit approximately 600 individuals. To further highlight the need for Auburn to contribute to the Allen Moore Hospital, the Department of Health has determined that the most at risk for mental health crises in the state of Washington is the 98002 zip code right here in Auburn. We all know that the nation's standard for beds is 26 behavioral beds per 100,000 citizens. South King County and Pierce County have an average of 2.8 beds per 100,000 citizens. A sobering comparison, the annual suicide rate is 13.26 per 100,000 individuals. For every suicide, there's 25 attempts. In order to give you a real-world perspective on these numbers, I have been calling Auburn Multicare and St. Joseph's Hospital in Tacoma, the two local hospitals with adult behavioral health units, randomly since August 28th. Auburn has 20 beds and St. Joe's has 23. Auburn has never had a bed available, including right now. St. Joe's has only had 4 out of the 8 times I've called. It has been repeatedly suggested that MultiCare add behavioral beds to either the Auburn or Covington locations. I've confirmed with MultiCare CEO Bill Robertsons that there are no plans to add additional inpatient behavioral beds to either Auburn Medical Center or Covington. Alan Moore is MultiCare's focus for inpatient behavioral care, and so should it be the City of Auburn's. Every 40 seconds, a life is lost to suicide. Since I've been talking, 4 lives have been lost. I would like each of you to consider, how much is the life of an Auburn citizen worth to you? Because that's what we're talking about. Committing to providing resources to the Alan Moore Behavioral Health Hospital is this council saying that they believe in the importance of mental health care for this city. Because far too often, the lack of access to mental health resources and care ends in death. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward, give your name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bob Zimmerman. I live at 33029 46th Place South in Auburn. I want to speak to you about saving lives too. We have a concrete wall adjacent to our property that has a 1,000-gallon propane tank on the far side of it. The northwest winds, if that was to leak, blow towards that wall. Along the wall, adjacent to the wall, is where we built a house. They built this house as a daylight basement on flat ground, so they had to build a ramp at the end to get into their garage. Okay, so now you've got this big berm of dirt at the end. Now you've got a box canyon. Now, I'm sure you're all aware that there's going to be, at one of these days, a Cascadia earthquake. It's going to be 1,000 times greater than the Seattle quake in 1965. It's not even reasonable to expect these propane tanks that are not earthquake strapped, they're not required in the state of Washington, to stay in place and not break their connection and leak. There's no safety valves on them. Now we have a situation where we can trap the volume of this tank in this box canyon. Now it's not reasonable to think that tank's full that day. So let's say there's only 250 gallons. It's only a quarter full. And all that propane blows up into that box canyon waiting for a power line to come down and ignite it, or other failure. Now, the number one secondary risk in earthquake is fire. So now we've got a situation there where we've got this propane, and the evacuation radius around an incident like that is 1/4 mile. Now, it's kind of hard to find explosive information online these days due to, I suppose, terrorists. They want to limit that. But I was able to find from the University of Victoria some blast wave data that basically says that by volume, this propane is twice the explosive power as TNT. Now we're talking about probably within 100 yards of this house, we got 20 people. Okay, so I mean, they have a good chance of being a fatality. And beyond that, you have the rest of the neighborhood is subject to serious injury. So anyway, I would like to propose that since the code, the fire department has told me that they cannot do anything about this because the fire codes are a minimum standard. And they can't assess a situation like this and do anything about it. And they told me that you guys are going to be adopting the next code probably within the next month. And I would urge you to put a motion in place and pass it that gives the Valley Fire people the authority to assess situations like this and the authority to enforce it. Don't put it on some bureaucrat's desk to enforce it. Let the people that know what the heck they're doing enforce it. And anyway, it looks like I ran out of time. But I would urge you to very little cost to save lives, and Auburn can be a leader in this because the rest of the state of Washington doesn't care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Final time. Anyone else like to speak? All right, we will move forward. We have no correspondence for council review this evening. We will move to council ad hoc committee reports. We currently have one ad hoc committee, and that is Finance. Councilmember Baggett.
Thank you, Your Honor. This week, as members of the Council Ad Hoc Finance Committee, Councilmember Wagner and I reviewed the payroll vouchers and electronic deposits for approximately $2.1 million and claims vouchers and wire transfers for approximately $7.7 million for the periods August 31st to September 13th and September 18th, 2017, respectively. And the committee recommends council approval of these expenses.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the Deputy Mayor Wells?
Oh, I was just getting ready.
Okay. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Wells.
Thank you. I move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Pelosa.
I'll second, Mayor.
Thank you.
Also, Mayor, I'd like to pull item E, CT 1218 for discussion.
Okay, does it need to be pulled, or can it just be part of the discussion prior to the vote?
However you want to handle it.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, does it need to be pulled, or can it just be part of the discussion?
It could be either way.
Okay. Councilmember Pelosi, are you all right with it being part of the discussion before? All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Deputy Mayor Wells, would you like to explain what's on the consent agenda?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your microphone, I believe.
Thank you. We want approval this evening for the minutes of the February 29th, 2016, and the March 14th, 2016 study session meeting. We want approval for the minutes of the September 5th, 2017 regular City Council meeting. And we also want approval for the claims vouchers and payroll vouchers that Councilmember Baggett and Councilmember Wagner reviewed and recommended for approval. We want approval for Public Works Project CP 1406, which is going to allow us to bid for a project to upgrade Main Street signals. And finally, a approval to change order in the amount of $39,000 for project work on Lake Tapps Parkway preservation project.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Pelosi, did you have a question?
Okay, I'm looking at page 21 of 82. This is regarding the Muckleshoot Plaza to Dogwood Street Southeast project. I'd like to, and then I'm addressing change order number 1. Change order is, according to the last paragraph on that page, is in the amount of $199,000 plus a few $100s. However, if you look at page 23 of 82, and that's the budget status sheet, if you look at the estimated costs, funds needed, in the middle of the page, you'll scroll down there to change order number 1, and it's the value is $374,000 and a few $100s. I'd like to know what that difference is.
Okay.
That's my first question. And then I brought this up before, but on page 23, under the funding, we have a federal grant for $2.3 million. We have a state grant for $466,000. Traffic impact fees, $1,074,000. And then $1.1 million coming on out of the water fund, and then there's a couple other ones. I had talked about what is the Muckleshoot Indian tribe contributing to this project when it's obviously going to benefit the tribe and the casino, et cetera, up in that area. And I think we had talked about maybe we were going to, the mayor and or staff were going to approach the Muckleshoot Indian tribe to discuss funding from them. So I'd like to know why, or have we approached the Muckleshoots for funding? And if we haven't, why not?
So I will let Ingrid Gaub provide the information, but this is a project that has been in the works for a while. So Ingrid?
Sure. So to answer your first question about the dollar differences, so the change order is in the amount of $374,393 and some change. At the bottom of page 21, where it talks about the $199,000 and a few $100s, that is the current budget deficit. And the next paragraph, we talk about how we're actually going to make up those funds. So still using traffic impact fees for paying that difference from other budgeted projects that are not moving forward this year or that are already completed and have an excess budget to them. So that's the difference in the numbers. So the $199,000 is not the change order amount. That's a portion of what's needed. With that, there's still about $130,000 in contingency funds for the project because we're not done with construction, so we still want to be able to address any immediate emerging needs as we go through the final construction on the project. To answer your other question, so this project has been in the works for about 3 to 4 years. It has been discussed numerous times at the tribe and city global meetings and discussed about what the funding needs were for the project. The tribe at this point has chosen not to partner on this particular project. They are working with us and they are doing some improvements within the casino site itself to accommodate the additional turn movements that we are building at Riverwalk, but that is the extent of their participation.
So
Councilmember Pelosi.
So what you're telling me is we're doing all these improvements for the tribal area.
So I would say that we are doing these improvements. This is a safety grant, and the reason that we got this grant was because of the number of accidents along Auburn Way South through this corridor. So I don't see that as only serving the tribe. I see that as serving all of our residents as well as commuters that utilize that corridor. As this was the highest traffic accident location for the city.
Mayor, have we put in writing a request to the tribe?
Councilmember Pelosi, there have been numerous discussions, as Ingrid said, and yes, there was some of the early presentations provided that. Now, Muckleshoot Indian Tribe has chosen to partner with us on, in fact, last year's project, Phase 1 did have a contribution by the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe. They chose not to participate in this one. This is a safety grant that we received from the state, and so we chose to move forward with it. Council chose to move forward with it.
Also in this agenda bill approval form, it states, city anticipates receiving reimbursement from others.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the others?
So one of those others is for the bus shelter footings for King County Metro's bus shelters that are part of this change order, as well as reimbursement from private utility companies for some additional work that we had to do on their behalf for the utility joint trench that went in as part of the project. So those will be reimbursements from those sources.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Wagner.
I'd like to point out that the tribe is actually seeing some negatives out of this project. They wanted some left turns out of their area, and we took those away for safety reasons. The state has been not very cooperative in allowing access from SR 164 to the casino. So we actually took a bus tour with the Secretary of Transportation from the state and the members of the Tribal Council and several of us from this council to discuss those state requirements that were actually a negative for the casino. And the state chose not to ease any of those requirements. So yes, the casino sees some benefit, but I think the people who see the real benefit are their customers who are safer.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Passes. All right, we have no unfinished business. We have no new business. We will move to resolutions. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution number 5297, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Auburn, Washington, authorizing the mayor to execute the flood protection easement for White River properties.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Wells.
I move for the approval of Resolution 5297.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councilmember DeCoursey.
I'll second the motion, Your Honor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wells.
I think we reviewed this at our last study session, and it appeared at that time to answer all of our questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution number 5297, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Passes.
Resolution number 5315, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Auburn, Washington, adopting and supporting the Auburn Pioneer Cemetery Master Plan.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Holman.
I move for the adoption.
Microphone.
It's been so long. I move for the adoption of Resolution 5315.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councilmember Baggett.
I second that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Holman.
At our study session, we discussed the Pioneer Cemetery over by Fred Meyer and the Outboard Marine Company. This little cemetery is a real treasure to our community. We've also had come before us the members of the White River Buddhist Temple and speak to the historical value of this park. And some of the drawings they presented were wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing us go forward with this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of resolution number 5315, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Passes. All right, that concludes the business of the council. We will move on to mayor and council member reports. At this time, the mayor and city council may report on their significant city-related activities since the last regular council meeting. Deputy Mayor Wells.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to share with the group that I serve on the South King County Health Foundation. We're in the process of getting donations, contributions from our citizens as we look to continue with the remodeling at Auburn Multicare. We had an opportunity to visit their new emergency center, and it's a great thing of the future. We're very lucky to have it. We're continuing to get funds to do the rest of the remodel, and we are also raising money for the Covington Hospital. To date, we have raised $200,000 for Covington and $500,000 for Auburn Multicare. And I will keep you posted as we continue to look to ways where we can support our medical community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pelosa.
Thank you, Mayor. I had an opportunity, pleasurable opportunity, to attend the Regional Policy Committee last week, and one of the major briefings was on the King County Best Start for Kids. And so I know you all have heard a lot of bits and pieces, so I'm going to give you about a 3-minute update. This levy was voted on by the King County public in November of 2015. And this is a 6-year levy, so it goes through 2021. The value, the total value of the 6-year levy is roughly $400 million for those 6 years. And I'll give you a breakdown of where this money goes, planning to go, or where it's going. 190 million is going to new birth to 5-year-olds. 129 million 5-year-olds to 24-year-olds. 37 million communities of opportunity, different projects and communities that further the development of these folks. And then 44 million other projects. We also had another main point is the levy, it's 14 cents per $1,000 property evaluation, 14 cents. We had a briefing on how they're going to measure. So the King County is setting up an evaluation and performance measurement plan to make sure that all the accountability is we're spending the money correctly. They also discussed audit methodology. They also discussed demographics. How are they going to see where all this money is being spent within King County? And they're planning to do it by zip code, the demographics by zip code. So that's, and then there was a motion to approve the performance measurement plan, and there was discussion, and finally a motion was approved. Then another item of discussion was the Cedar Hills landfill, where all of our garbage goes to. In 2004, when I came to this dais, they were going to close the Cedar Hills landfill in 2016. 2016. That was last year, but it's still open. And the reason it's open is because they had many, many improvements. Recycling was a big help, but still 70% of what goes in that landfill can be recycled. That's a huge amount. They also, the King County Solid Waste Division, they had more efficiencies incorporated, blah, blah, blah. So now it's planned to close the Cedar Hills landfill in 2030. 2030. And they're continually trying to see how they can push that out even further. Also, the final thing that was discussed was there are 32 cities, and Auburn is one of them, where we have interlocal agreements with King County on how our garbage is transported through transfer stations and then out to Maple Valley where the Cedar Hills landfill is. There are the cities of Bellevue, Clyde Hill, Hunts Point, Medina, and Yarrow Point. They are still considering how they want to participate. So that, we're still looking at that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Thank you. On September 7th and 8th, I attended our 9th annual DV symposium in Seattle, and this is where all the DVI advocates, prosecutor attorneys, judges, our detectives, police officers, they attend workshops, and this was the largest one that we have had. They made sure that we all attended the meetings that we signed up for. because they were all sold out. They covered from immigration to visas to how to do a mock interview with a victim. Also, the prosecutor attorneys did a mock court case on what to say and what not to say to a victim. And it was really an eye-opening for me to see how the court system does do their DVI cases and the load that they have. One of them that I went to, all that was there, I was the only one that was not in the in the law, like an attorney or a judge or anything like that. And just to hear the frustrations that they are going through because of the law and on how the victim does not go to court because she's afraid of her perpetrator. So I really enjoy going to that conference. It was 2 days long, but it was very worth going to. Then on September 9th, I have to kind of pat myself on my shoulders. It was my birthday, and I've been celebrating it for 2 weeks and attending still my workshops that I have to go to. On September 12th, the mayor and I attended the opening of Habitat for Humanity in Pacific. Delta Airlines sponsored this home that they're building in Pacific for a veteran's single mother and son and daughter, and it was really nice to hear Del Constantine go and open up the ceremony and to meet the young lady and her children. They were so grateful for the opportunity to get this home. It was well attended. It was very hot sitting out there in the sun. But what was really neat is that I think Delta planned this because as Del Constantine is talking, Delta Airlines were going by every so many. It's so funny. But it's such a nice program to see them have AmeriCorps and also Delta volunteers to go out there and build this house. This is the second one that is built in Pacific, and Mayor Luann Geyer is just a trooper over there in that city. Then on September 14th, the mayor and I and Councilmember Baggett and Councilmember Rich Wagner attended the employee luncheon. This was my first one I've attended, and it was really nice to see all the directors and the way your employees chose their the winners, the employee of the month, and it was really very well done. But I was kind of surprised that there wasn't that many 25-year employees. I expected to see more, but it was nice to see the ones that were there. And also the mayor kind of spoke a little bit about our council member Wagner serving on the council for 28 years. Is that correct? So thank you for your service, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Baggett.
Thank you, Your Honor. I attended on August 24th and September 13th 2 sessions with the Emergency Management Advisory Committee. This committee reports to King County Council. And basically, the first meeting on the 24th was a capabilities assessment workshop where those members that wish to participate in this assessment were able to contribute to a portion of the 32 core capabilities that is trying to show where we have gaps in our activation of our processes in the event of a disaster or an emergency situation. Because they were only able to get through about maybe a third of those capabilities, they're going to have another meeting coming up I guess on October 3rd to kind of finish up those assessments. But it was pretty enlightening on that at that meeting to participate in that and give everybody's from every city that participated an idea of where they stand or how they feel that we are standing in notification of our residents and the preparations and being ready to process all the information that's necessary and get the facilities and equipment and people to where they need to be in the event of a disaster. And believe it or not, we're not as well prepared as we should be. I think Auburn is probably in the forefront of this activity with our emergency management team. And we have our Emergency Operations Center active, and the participants, and I see one of the participants sitting in the audience. It's one of our ham operators. And I wanted to compliment all those people that volunteer for this activity and become a part of that activity. The second meeting on the 13th basically was the meeting of the full committee. And believe you me, there are probably in the neighborhood of 75 or 80 people on that committee that represent every city in King County, plus all of the King County representatives that support all of those activities. They talked about mass care, training and exercise, community outreach, which was the #1 gap, community outreach. Resource management, how you get your facilities and your equipment to an area that needs those services. We had a response from the Northwest Healthcare Response Network about CMS emergency preparedness and an update on how they are participating in this process. Again, it was a well-intended and attended meeting by all the cities that were involved. There were a few that were missing from the actual committee meeting. However, I think that overall, participating in what we have done here, the City Council, I think it's probably time for the City Council to be reviewed again by the EOC activities to make sure that we're up to speed. Of course, maybe that will take place after the election process, but we'll see how that goes. But I think that we're probably ready for another refresher on what's required of your council and the mayor and all of the people that would be involved in case of an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Holman.
First, I'd like to thank a member of the public, Liz Miller, for statistical presentation in support of the Alan Moore Behavioral Mental Health Hospital, and it was really quite eye-opening. Second, a little more levity involved. I'd like to thank my colleague Bill Pelosa. Everything I know about garbage I've learned from you over the last 6 years, and it is appreciated. And with that, I yield the remainder of my time.
Solid waste. Right. Councilmember Wagner, can you take us out of this, please?
On the 14th, I attended the Puget Sound Regional Council's Transportation Policy Board. There was a discussion around the redesignation of centers. The four-county region covered by the PSRC designates certain areas as centers, and then they get extra points when they apply for grant funds for transportation. Our engineers and planners have been very successful at that, but we might be able to give them one more tool to work with by identifying our manufacturing and industrial center as well as our downtown as regional centers that could qualify for various grants. So at our next study session, we will have a preview of that, and then probably at the following one, a more in-depth look at whether we might want to add manufacturing and industrial center to our already existing regional growth center. The other discussion was around funding for the transportation in these four county regions through the year 2040. It's mind-boggling to see how many billions that amounts to, but they're looking, they being the state transportation and the planners of the Puget Sound Regional Council are looking at all the possible ways that that could be funded. And they threw out a number at this one that was kind of amazing to me, that By the year 2030, we will be paying taxes on an average household basis of $900 a year. That's just the taxes for transportation. And of course, a lot of that is this recent Sound Transit 3 car tabs, but it's a lot of other taxes that all add up. And by the way, I mentioned that to our meeting of the Transportation Policy Board, or Transportation Benefit District tonight, which is composed of this council, as we unanimously decided to not implement a $20 tab fee, and it's partly in light of the tax burden that is already here and growing. The other thing I wanted to say about the employee luncheon was it was just really gratifying to me to have that in one of our own facilities. We've had it all these years over in the upstairs at the tavern. Having it in our own community center was just thrilling for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, it was upstairs at the Rainier Room, not in a tavern. Just for the record, I just don't want anybody thinking that our employees are out at the tavern. But thank you, Councilmember Wagner. Councilmember DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of the committees that I'm part of have been on a hiatus for the past few weeks, but we're picking back up again this month. But a couple of things I wanted to discuss. One is I will be absent from the October 2nd council meeting. I'll be over in Spokane October 2nd through the 4th at the annual Housing Washington Conference, of which the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, of which you know I'm a member of, is an active participant in that. We have a series of meetings with AHAB over there during that time, and I'm hoping to bring back some good news from the Affordable Housing Board, but also from the process of what we go through of Housing Washington, and see where some of the concerns still lie, but also perhaps some promises that may come out of our legislator, hopefully in this next session. The other thing I wanted to mention was Councilmember Wagner and I had our focus group pre-meeting today with Assistant Director Galb and Director Snyder and Assistant Director Tate, where Councilmember Baggett and I live over at the river. I've been approached a couple of times by various people regarding some permitting processing over there, where it does take quite a while to go through permitting for things like handicap ramps and such, mainly because where we live is in a flood zone. Now, although the levee has been raised and it's been working out really well over there, it's not a certified levee, so we still have to go through a process of pretty exhaustive permitting because that's what the requirements are. So Assistant Director Tate and his staff was able to work with the owners of the park to allow the park owners to obtain one single permit for a total sum of $280, which allows the residents of the park who are doing minor construction projects to be able to do those projects in a quicker time without going through, I'll use the term, a bureaucratic process, because we live next to the Green River, and there's a levee there in a flood zone. So, really great work. Kudos to Jeff and his staff for doing what they're doing, and I know that our 300-plus residents over the river, Bob, are going to be much better served now that we have this in place. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. Last week, monthly coffee hour at Merrill Gardens with the seniors, who are always very sharp and keep me on my toes with questions and concerns, and really enjoy those meetings. Next month, we are bringing in our bicycle officers and one of our CRT officers to answer some of the questions that they have. So looking forward to that. And again, it's always a lively group. They have some great questions for me, but we also have a lot of fun as well. On the 7th of September, we had a visit. We like to go out and visit the businesses in our community. We try and do that on a regular basis. And this last visit was to the Danner Corporation, which is out on Orovitz Place South, down at the south end of town by Auburn Valley Humane Society. And they have been there since the late 70s. And, you know, they do a lot of manufacturing and are a supplier for the Boeing company. But the one thing that you might not know about them is that Jack Danner enjoys, or his vision has always been to have a school. And there is a small school on that site, and it's called Little Jack's Corner. And it is for 0 to 5-year-olds, and they call it a school. And they would like to enlarge that school to offer more opportunities for children to attend there. It started out kind of as a school for the children of their employees, but it has grown past that. And what Jack said is that the manufacturing company is just the means for him to be able to provide education for children. So something that you might not know about one of our local businesses, we have some great businesses here in town, and that's just another one of them, and always impressed and learn something new whenever we go out on those visits. And then later that afternoon, up at the Sikh Temple, up on just past Auburn Mountain View, the members of the temple were putting together supplies to drive back to Houston for relief, hurricane relief. And they had just about filled a U-Haul truck, and were going to drive for 48 hours straight. Deputy Mayor Wales attended as well, and was really impressed by their community spirit and how they come together in times of need, and the thousands and thousands of dollars that they have provided for educational supplies, for non-food items, water, and it just, their belief is that you help everyone in need, and there are no limitations to their generosity and what they will do for their community. So we might bring them in here one of these days soon for a presentation on that. It was very impressive. And then, since I left that event a little bit late, it was late getting to the first meeting of our Civics Academy. In fact, Mr. Zimmerman is part of the Civics Academy, and this is the second year that we are holding this academy. It's 10 weeks, 12 weeks. 11 weeks, right in the middle. That wasn't one of the options I gave. It was 10 or 12, but it's 11 weeks, and the participants will get to hear from each one of our departments, go out on some field trips. In fact, I believe the maintenance and operations visit is on a Saturday, and it really does provide residents with a better understanding of how your government works. It's always easy for you to question some of our decisions, our actions, but hopefully at the end of the Civics Academy you have a better appreciation for why we do some of the things we do. Sometimes they might seem crazy, and to be honest with you, that's simply government in some regards. We don't have much control over some of the things at the state and federal level, but it is a good understanding of how our local government works. On Monday, the 11th, I attended as a member of the All Home Coordinating Board. It was a special session, and it was on the NOFA rankings. That is the Notice of Financing Available, or of Funding Available, and that's through Housing and Urban Development. And the All Home Coordinating Board is the mechanism for determining funding for the King County area. And I am happy to say that on the prioritized ranking that we submitted for approval, there were 3 or 4 projects that are directly benefiting the City of Auburn residents for nonprofits that are located in the City of Auburn directly. That doesn't mean that that's the only benefit that we'll be receiving, but those are projects that are direct benefit because the nonprofit is located in the City of Auburn. So I was really happy to be part of that approval process for the submittal to HUD. And talking about our employee luncheon, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that was involved in the planning of that. Parks Department, the team out of my office, Tammy, Antoinette, Kaylin, Josh, Doug, Dana, and Holly, all did an incredible job of coordinating all of that. I believe it was the largest attendance we've ever had. Daryl, how many people does it hold in there? Over 250?
It holds about 300. There are at least 260 to 70 in there that day.
Yeah, so it was an excellent showing. Really, really proud that has grown over the last few years. And for those of you that did attend, Councilmember Wagner, you might have been a little late getting in there to see the video that was produced by our own Jason Jones, who runs all of our equipment here. It was done through our multimedia department. The participants in the dance number did so on their lunch hour, and the other footage that was utilized was stock footage. But it really makes me proud to see the level of participation in something like this that was intended to show appreciation for the members of our team. They work hard for you each and every day, and sometimes it's thankless jobs. And as I've said before, especially to some of the sewer department workers, nobody knows about your job if everything is working properly. Everybody knows about your job if the sewers aren't working properly. So good opportunity for people to come together and enjoy a little fellowship. And then on Saturday, Avery Huffman, who most of you recall, a little 7-year-old girl up in Lakeland who lost her life to DIPG about a year and a half ago. And her family and friends had been collecting funds for a bench dedication. The DIPG is a brain cancer, an aggressive brain cancer, and from the day that Avery was diagnosed, it was 7.5 months that she had left on the face of this earth. And she did quite a bit during those 7.5 months, and we should all be so lucky to make a positive impact in the lives of others in such a short amount of time, or even be able to do that over the course of a full life. That young lady brought joy to everyone around her, and it was our honor to be there as the bench was dedicated. It is not in its permanent location because there is going to be an upgrade to that park. Is there not, Daryl?
Yes, next clean sweep, that park is scheduled for a new playground.
So it will be a fitting tribute to Avery and a place where Avery's family and friends can come to enjoy the park and to honor Avery's memory. And then yesterday evening, it was the Mexican Independence Day Festival at Les Gove Park. And even though it was a little bit wet, let's see, when I got up on stage, I said, "Es una día muy lluvioso," which means it is a very wet day. And everyone agreed. Did I say that right? Did I? Okay, good. It was still a fun event. The people who had waited out the storm were enjoying all of the great food, the camaraderie, and the entertainment up on stage. And it was an honor to be there to welcome people and to be part of their civil ceremony. There was the national anthem for Mexico as well as the national anthem for the United States, and it was really a fun way to end the weekend. With that, Mr. City Attorney, do we have any need for an executive or closed session?
No, we do not, Your Honor.
We are adjourned. Thank you.